All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for tuning back in. So this is going to be part 2 of episode 32, where we're talking about SPAFORGEN, talking about roles, responsibilities, and talking about what those amazing guardians that are on those combat squadrons are doing for us. So thanks for joining us again. I hope you enjoy it. So, sir, other than that, I mean, so everything else going all right out there with the model in Vandenberg, and you know how you guys are implementing it?
Yes, Chief. I do have sort of two questions nestled into one. While I was preparing for this podcast, I noticed in your bio that you were also stationed at Clear Air Force Station in Alaska, and that resonated with me because when I was there, it really foot-stomped the importance of the reserve and guard in maintaining the continuity and expertise, especially in a remote location like Clear or units with high turnover. So here at Vandenberg, we have a really great relationship with the 9th Combat Operations Squadron, which is an Air Force Reserve unit out here, and their support is crucial to our mission. So with that in mind, I wanted to ask, how does SPAFORGEN impact support from Guard Reserve units for active duty units like ours? And then additionally, are there any changes to the proficiency or pro shift expectations for those that are not on the core crews, whether they're active duty guardians maybe assigned to the MPC or the MSE, or Guard Reserve support personnel?
Hey, yes, sir. Thanks for the question. So, so I did do my time up at Clear, many moons ago when I was a tech sergeant, and at the time, and I had hair back then, I think. And I actually was just at Clear visiting a couple weeks ago with Honorable Wagner from SAFMR, so it was great to go back and visit the Polar Bar, and my name tag is still up there at the place. But like you, almost every mission set I've done, whether it be at the aggressors, missile warning, space domain awareness, I have been partnered with the Guard or reservist teammates, right? And as a service, I mean, there hasn't been a mission set that I've been able to do without, right, that subject matter expertise in that partnership. So vitally important to what we do as a service in the space domain. With the Personnel Management Act that came into law, and this is specifically just for the reserves. The guard piece is a separate discussion. We have to wait to see what our elected officials will do with that. But to answer your question, sir, on the reserve piece, as we look to see what that model of full-time, part-time is going to be, General Saltzman has kind of painted out that vision where, if there are full-time non-cause individuals that are embedded with the 18th Space Defense Squadron today, chances are that the first tranche will be those full-time positions. And probably those members have an opportunity to apply and volunteer to come over and just they're full-time in the Guard one day. I'm sorry, full-time in the reserves one day, and now there's just a full-time guardian the next day. And they change uniforms, and we'll have to figure out, work through kind of what that looks like now that they're full-timers. The part-time we're still working through, and part of it is from a systems perspective, because we're not just going to recreate the reserve component in the Space Force. That's not it. This will be a completely different way of looking at what it means to be part-time. We're not there yet. The systems aren't mature enough to understand the difference that we're going to do. And, General Saltzman and Ms. Kelly has talked about, it's vitally important that before we can implement the part-time model, that there's a way to pay and compensate and track the time of those members, right? So they're taken care of, and we're not there yet. So the part-timers go a little bit going differently. But overarching the vision is that the deep subject matter expertise and experience of the part-timers, where can we leverage that expertise and experience in the positions and the functions that are most valuable for them and for us. And that's going to be some of the planning and the staff functions, creating, right, the charting the vision where we're going, test evaluation, instructors, a lot of the institutional requirements. We're going to ask some of those part-timers, right? Those are kind of the functions we want to do. But sir, to your question on what General Saltzman refers to as a CMR tax, that for an employed in place kind of mission set, for a part-timer to be embedded in a crew position necessarily doesn't kind of meet the part-time model that we want to get at. So for the employed in place models being combat mission ready, chances are they won't be functions that a part-timer will do. It'll be more of the other instructor and institutional test evaluation aggressors, even recruiters, right? We get a chance to leverage that. The only caveat to that combat mission ready on the part-timers is traditional deployable units like Delta 3 and some of the electronic warfare systems that we have, because it's very predictable in a normal rotation where you could bring a part-timer in, put them on orders, right, generate them, train them up, get them deployment ready. They go downrange for 6 months. They come back, and essentially they're back in their prepare and ready phase. So that's a model that is really honed for part-timers. The employed in place is a little different. But overarchingly, right, that relationship, that subject matter expertise, so those individuals that are wearing airman uniforms today in the reserve are vitally important. On the guard side, as we kind of walk through that, as you know, right, some of the surge capacity, especially in the electronic warfare realm, our guard partners are helping us meet combatant command requirements. And we're looking through to see, based on what our elected officials do, will kind of dictate what that path goes forward. But, the capacity and the expertise is still vital to what we do. And we're hoping that whatever that model looks like, whether that a space guard, they stay as an Air National Guard, still status quo, or they come over into the Space Force, just like the reserve and the part-time, full-time model, that those members have an opportunity to stay on the team because we really need, that expertise and experience that they have.
Well, thank you, Chief, for the incredibly detailed response. That's really helpful, and I'll bring it back to the team here. My one last question was, what about the active duty members and guardians that may have not necessarily gone through the prepare and ready phase with the crew, so they're not part of the 8 full-time crews? Is there an expectation that they would still be allowed to pull proficiency shifts on crew, or is that not the intent?
So do you mean like individuals maybe in the mission planning cell or the mission support cell?
That's exactly right, Chief.
Yeah, so I think, in the discussions that we've had, and I'll let Chief Lloyd jump in on this too, but, I think on what we consider the combat crew, which is the combat crew, on the general sense is your space operators, your intelligence operators, and your cyber operators. Now, everyone's a little different depending on where the maturity level of, mission defense teams and stuff. But those are kind of the three kind of core functions of what we call the combat crew, with those kind of three functional areas. And then you got your mission planning cell and then the mission support element. I think we're still working through a little bit more on what actually constitutes a mission planning cell, a mission support element, based on the requirements of that weapon system and whether or not they're pulling proficiency shifts and kind of what that looks like. I think we're still working through it, but I'll kick over to Caleb and, what he's kind of learned in that journey.
No, I think, really back to the point that this is a continued evolution, right? As we work through this, what worked before, right, and the expectations that we had previously for all of our teammates may not be where we want. But at the end of the day, right, what I would love to see is that MPC, or that mission, or really the MPC, I think, is we're pulling people from crew. Like that is, hey, you have killed it on crew, and now you're up there and you're doing the kind of the broad planning for the entire mission area, or that crew, and you've got at least the experience, proven credibility to walk in there. Now we've got to find what right looks like. If we just do a blanket, hey, everybody's CMR'd and you must be, that doesn't necessarily work, because each mission area is a little bit different. Each position may be a little bit different, and it may not be, and I've seen it, where every position is interchangeable, even for a 5 Sierra, right? You can't just swap. So how do we work through that and navigate that? We're going to have to work through it. Now, this is where the capacity is important in terms of, hey, that 5th crew, okay, well, I may need, instead of you getting 3 days off or 2 days off, I need you to work an extra day so I can take this day off. Or, as we adjust through any number of life circumstances that come on that may impact the crews and who's in and who's on at any given time or any given day. The feedback is critical. As we work through this, where do we have the ability to accept some risk? What is that risk? When we talk about mission command tenets, this is it. I mean, really, we've set the guidance and intent of what we want broadly. We want our experts at that tactical level in those leadership positions to figure out how. And how do we get there? And then feed that back. And we'll iterate. And where we need to put things down in policy or best practice, whatever it may be, then we're gonna work through that. But it's not the perfect answer, because there is no perfect answer right now. We're literally figuring. I won't say figure. That's a bad thing. We are working through how we do business and what right looks like in order to deliver combat capability. Fundamentally, That is where we're at today. Is again the shift from the efficiency mindset to the combat effectiveness, and you got what you got, and we're going to figure it out. And so that may look different than what many of our teammates who've been around this environment for a while may know. And so you're in a perfect position, Captain, to help us understand what that looks like.
So Alicia, I think you said, you're at Delta 4, and I think you said you're in a mission planning cell yourself, and I think you said that you guys are pulling proficiency shifts. So is that kind of a model that you're doing as you're a member of the mission planning cell, but you still pull shifts?
Yes, sir. And we're also, if there's a crew member out, the committed NPC would be the first to fill those spots.
Okay. So are you willing? Can you share what is your battle rhythm? Are you working rotating shifts? Are you working days? How many days on? How many days off? I mean, how is the implementation going for you? Or do you still feel like you have the time to spend with friends and loved ones and do the things you have to do in addition to, the combat requirements that we're asking of you?
On your average week, we're working 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. So pretty typical. However, with recent conflicts in CENTCOM, we're called in on nights and weekends to plan and debrief those events. So that can be tough. But on a typical week, we still have our weekend.
And that kind of allows you, I try not to use the phrase work-life balance, but I use the word harmony. So what we're asking you to do, and like you just said, being kind of called in with world events, first of all, thank you for what you do, for doing that. And hopefully, right, that gives you such a sense for you and your teammates of importance and validation of why we do what we do, why you do what you do is so vitally important that you have to get maybe called in on a weekend to do some planning. But as you kind of go through that, is it still something you think that that when you think about your harmony in life, is that working out for you?
Yes, sir. I think I'm able to find a harmony. But, like we've talked about, we're still adjusting to the new construct, figuring out what we can take on and what we can't. So I think when we get there, it'll be much smoother. We're still storming and forming right now.
Yeah. And this is Chief Lloyd again. I'll just say, again, thank you for doing that. I know that sometimes that's uncomfortable, but to the point of really your sense of purpose and why we exist is that there is nobody else to do that. No one. We're the only entity that can provide that warning that you're providing to our teammates downrange, right? And that thankfully in this last, event that we all watched on TV is Iran launched a whole bunch of missiles and drones and things at Israel. That is yours to own, and you embrace it and you own it and you give that time because that's what we're asking of you. But when as you march towards, the implementation that we're working towards in July, where we're really going to harmonize across the force on how we present our capability, I think you'll see more predictability in what you're working and when you're working. We will find ways where we find the shortfalls of, hey, we need a little bit more over here because it's just not right? The balance isn't where we need it to be, and we're going to help resource that. But we've got to work through this in a way that is different than what we've been used to, and that is uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is okay. And we're going to work towards how do we get to where we need to be so that we have kind of that harmony that you talk about.
Hey, Brandon, so, you and Delta 9 and, working down there in Colorado Springs. So can you share what is the kind of schedule that you're working? How is your work-life harmony going? Do you get a chance to do some skiing or snowboarding out there in Colorado this season? Do you have enough time to do that?
I haven't tried to do any of that yet, Chief, but I think our schedule right now for how we do operations works pretty well. We implemented it back in October once we started hearing about SPAFORGEN. And as of right now with the 5 crews, the crews are either working 8 hours during the week, so they work Tuesday to Friday, so they only work 4 days, and then they get 3 days off on the weekend. And then we have a weekend crew that works 12 hours, and they get it's only days and mids, but they're only working 36 hours. And then our weekday crews are working 32 hours. So I've heard pretty great things. A lot of the crew members are pretty happy with the schedule that we've implemented, and I almost get zero complaints about it. Right now it's a little bit different than what's going to happen once July 1st hits. Right now we're doing a monthly-based schedule where we transition every month, so our periods are monthly rather than doing the 3 weeks. But once we hit July 1st, we're going to transition to the 3-week periods that's prescribed by SPOC.
So let me ask, in that model that you're doing, have we been successful on when you have scheduled days off, that those days are pretty much quote unquote protected, that the members no, I know that I'm off on these days. There may be some things that are scheduled, like, Chief Lloyd talked about, hey, someone has a birthday, I need someone to cover a shift, instead of 4 days off, you have 3 days off. But for the most part, have we been able to stay true to that, and that the time that we're giving back to the guardians and their families has been theirs to own?
Yes, Chief. We've tried as much as we can to protect the members' days off. It's very rare, right? We won't ask them to come in to do anything extra. The only times where we may have to ask a member is if somebody else has an emergency, right? They have a death in the family or something pops up and they have to leave, then we'll ask the members that are, most of the time we try to go with the dwell members first, just because it's easier to ask them than ask somebody who's been working 4 mids and then have to work another mid. So we usually try to ask them first, but it's usually pretty protected. We try to keep that as much as we can in place. Sometimes we have members taking leave and we try to accommodate it as much as possible, but it's usually a conversation with the members. If it's possible to help them with that leave time, then we can. If it's an emergency, of course, we'll always help them. But in certain scenarios where they want to take leave for personal reasons, we try to help them. But if it's not possible, we'll let them know, hey, it's not possible because, somebody else is going to get hurt by this. So we try to protect them as much as we can, Chief.
No, I appreciate that. Now, I'll tell you, from my perspective, right back in the day, when I was working shift, a lot of times one of your off days would be the days you have to go in for monthly recurrent training, MRT. It wasn't even advanced training. It was just monthly recurrent training, right? So sometimes we'd burn one of our days off to do that. Or it would be, after end of a mid shift at 7:30 when the training team came in, right? We'd stay late to kind of go through training after working all night, and knocking out in a couple hours, so to the whole purpose of this whole SPAFORGEN thing, in addition to presenting the forces of combatant commander, right, is that prepare and ready phase where, hey, your days off when you're in commit are your days. And then there's dedicated time to, you're not rushing through training. It's not something you do at the end of the, already working 12 hours, already working for 9 hours through the night. You just want to get home and start your break, or whatever the case is, that there's dedicated time to be able to do that. And this is where in the model, it's really about you. It's about all the 3 of you, all the guardians that, I think I haven't met one guardian that say, hey, I was trained as an intelligence, I'm a targeteer, right? Or I'm a mission defense operator, or I understand orbital warfare. I want to hone my craft, right? I'm committed to mastering, right, my skill craft, and saying, hey, don't give me time, don't give me scenarios, don't let me be better. I haven't met anyone who said that, right? But we're trying to build in that time and the ecosystem to provide that. And we're not there yet, but this is one of the reasons we're doing this 3-phase cycle when you came out of the commit, that, hey, at 105 days, the days you have off, hopefully your days off, other than when we need teammates to be teammates and help each other out. But man, in that prepare and ready phase is where we owe you, right, the experience to be able to hone your skill craft, upgrade, be the best version of be that you want to be, and say, hey, I joined the Space Force because I want to do this mission set. Let me do my mission set. We keep talking about the threat. Let me get after the threat. Let me understand the threat. And that's, kind of what on the back end of all this, the advanced training piece and honing you as warriors and war fighters is kind of what, the other benefit of the SPAFORGEN model on this.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And we talk about, in the commit phase, when you're in your mission, you are burning readiness. That's all you're doing, is you're burning down because while certainly training should be happening, you're not at the level that we can get to because we just don't have the capacity to do it. I need you to be on mission, ready to fight at any moment. But when we take you out, and I use a terrible analogy, but I'll use it here, and you guys can make fun of me later. Is, I like to cook, and I have a go-to kitchen knife, and I use that thing relentlessly. And then after a while, if I don't take it out and I don't hone it, and I don't sharpen it, it's dangerous because it's dulled out because I'm constantly using it. And so, in a weird kind of way, this is kind of what we're looking at, right? Is you're burning readiness while you're in commit phase. You're getting a little bit duller because you're just doing the day-to-day mission because that's what we need you to do. Now I'm going to take you out of that rotation. I'm going to put you in a scenario where I just can't do because I got to have, right? People want GPS all the time. They want missile warning all the time. We want name the capability all the time. And so I think this model gives us that predictable way to get after all of that and to develop the best guardians that we can and our best, really, we've got airmen, we've got allies that are all part of this and wrapped into this model as an institution. And it's going to make us better. Yeah,
and that's been critical, I think, that from the vantage point, right, of the three of you who are in the combat squadron who are doing the work, that understanding, that vision of what Chief Lloyd and I just talked about, believe me, I understand, right? You may not feel that. You may not see that today. You may not feel that. It may not be the experience that you have. But I ask, right, that help us. That's the journey that we're on, and that right. You are embracing that, helping us on that journey, and also more importantly, that you're sharing that with others, right? If they don't understand the why, that you kind of share the why, but also that you have the courage to provide the feedback.
Yeah.
To say, hey, where we're going is the right place, but man, we've got some work to do. Like there's changes or adjustments or things we have to get after it, but we can't take our eye off the ball. Is that this is the vision we have to get to. This is what we owe one another, and kind of help us right on the journey that we're on, because we're all in this together. Yeah. We're all in this together.
Roger, Chief. I think I really like the predictability model where everybody can see what's going to happen and the times that they have for training, and also when they're supposed to do their advanced training and then go into their commit cycles. But I was curious on one part. There's kind of a concern. I know in the prepare phase is where we're meant to do our PME, our upgrade training, all that stuff. But at the moment, we're only looking at 3 weeks, while most PMEs at the moment are at least 5 weeks long. And I know that going into that and then having to do exercises or advanced training, it kind of reduces the time that members can have for leave, and then they have to choose between having PME or going to leave. I'm just curious on your guys' thoughts on what that looks like when members have to do PME but they don't have enough time because of the 3-week and 6-week implementation during the prepare and ready phase.
So Chief Lloyd again here. When I look at, we've got the fancy wheel that some of you have seen, and we talk about prepare and ready and what those things are. When I really break down advanced training and exercise, what is it? Training, right? It's making us better. It's development. So some of that absolutely is going to be, I want the teams that are going into commit to be preparing for threats and things that they may see when they go into commit. But there's also time baked in there for institutional requirements that make you better, to include PME. And so we're going to have to work through that, right? And there may be times where we're going to flex a little bit, and you're going to go into those instead of getting 42 days of constant advanced training, because that's not, we haven't fully defined every single iteration. I know you're going to get some advanced training. We're working through that in terms of aggregated, everybody's coming together through StarCom venues, and we're going to do training. But that's not going to be 42 days. There are other unit level things that you're going to have to work through as part of your training regime to go into commit. And then there are institutional requirements that we want to bake through. So we want to protect as much as we can the prepare phase. There may be some nuances there where you're in prepare and then you go into ready, but you're covering down on PM. We're going to work through that, right? And this is why I think having a model that the service is able to anchor on, to say, here, this is our model. Now, all of the other supporting things that we do, from PME to name a thing, all bake into the model itself and how we prepare and ready our force. So it's kind of one of those trust me's, like it's going to be okay. We're going to deliver the PME in the time that you need to do that, and we're going to deliver the time that you need to take your leave that is earned.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and this is why the discussion and the feedback is so important, right? That the entire system, whether it be officer development, enlisted development, or even civilian development, right? That collectively we can't be doing this in the stovepipe. So when we're creating courses that don't align with what we're how we provide combat capability, well, what does that mean? How do we get after it? But to what you talked about, when we talk advanced training, what that looks like. Hey man, like if us sending a non-commissioned officer to the Fellowship 2, which is the new version of our NCO Academy, is not relevant to make you a better leader when you get back to your commit phase, then we're doing something wrong.
That's right.
Right. So to your point, right, it's a different type of advanced training, but it's advanced training.
Excellent.
So we just inducted the first cadre of fellows into Fellowship 2, and out of the 5 weeks, week number 4 was warfighting.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they talked about. So I think it's just a different type of training, advanced training, but hopefully at the end of the day, right, it's making you a better prepared guardian that when you get in that commit phase, you're just more lethal and better at it.
And I think, just what I love about the fact, and this is why some people, I think, still get a lot of questions, why Space Force? This is why. Because ultimately what we're doing here is I'm providing the opportunity to venues over the course of a career to develop a professional space warfighter. And some of those things are going to be those PME experiences that you get that you then bring back, ideally, benefits to your unit, to your crew. Not, so not every NCO that's on your crew is going to go to PME at the same time, right? We can bake in through the predictable manner when folks go. If we need to adjust policy on impacts that it may have on promotion or not, we have all of that, right? This is the anchoring that the model allows us to do, is then figure out where we need to make adjustments here and there to the rest of the system. And so I think it's going to be goodness, but at the end of the day, the ability to develop a space pro over the course of a career is fundamental to what we do as a service now. And these are all things that tie into that.
Yeah. But to the base of your question, right? We got to make sure that we're not packing in so much into what we expect in the commit phase, in the prepare phase, and the ready phase. That to your question, right? That the things we say are important, i.e., leave, downtime, other developmental courses and classes, we can't squeeze that out. Yeah. So, and again, this is where the journey that we're on, the communication and the feedback is vitally important to understand that we're not necessarily have self-inflicted wounds because we're not paying attention to all the different things that incorporate our guardian's journey. Yeah. So this is why these kind of discussions and questions are so really important, that we kind of expose these, if you will, to make sure we're accounting for them in our discussions.
And I'll just add last point here. I don't know if we're at time, but as we go into the certification events, right, and every Delta is coming back with their certifications from their squadrons up to ultimately General Miller, right, and we're talking about what our regrets, all of these things we've got to be able to capture. And if you have concerns, that will be the venue to bring back and say, hey, this is what I think is going to happen in terms of my ability to meet development needs for our guardians, to meet leave requirements, to meet all of these things that impact how we do business. That will be the venue, because that's how we're going to measure where our readiness shortfalls are, and then we can actually effectively come back and fight for resources as necessary.
So we've been talking for a while, and this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. But I also want to make sure that we had a couple of questions from the three of you, but I also want to make sure I give you an opportunity if there's anything that you wanted to ask and we haven't had a chance to kind of cover that yet. So I'll start with Alicia. Is there anything, and I appreciate you sharing, but was there anything on your mind or that you wanted to ask or bring up, as we kind of draw to a close here?
Yes, sir. I had an observation that we were able to develop a new TTP and train up the crews in a faster time than I've ever seen. And we were able to do that with the new construct. We were able to debrief across our mission area. And we're seeing how this model is going to support surge operations. And these are all really great things that we're seeing. It just doesn't necessarily feel that great when you're coming in on nights and weekends to get all that accomplished.
Yeah, no, that is really good feedback, right? That one is that there's goodness coming out of the sacrifice and right what we're asking you to do, and to your point about, hey, it's hard work, right? And this is where I talked about from my perspective, what I've learned over 30 years of doing this is it's the work, it's the harmony part, right? Because it's hard if you're trying to balance the scales sometimes of, how many hours a day am I spending doing this? How many hours a day am I doing that? There are times when, right, your family and your loved ones are going to need more. Yeah. And there's times when, right, the joint warfighters and allies are going to need more. But that on either side of the scale can't be enduring, right? It can't be. We're always asked you to surge constantly, right? Because then you get at a harmony, and vice versa, right? If the family needs are so great that now it's impacting your ability to kind of do the things as a member of the profession of arms you need to do, right? But that's why the whole part-time model and Personnel Management Act is the reason we're going down that path. But I'll say it again that I really do appreciate what the men and women across the service, but what you highlight, especially in Delta 4, in the current world situation, that we're asking a lot of you right now. But the key is, right, that ask is not unending, and we've got to make sure that we identify that. You, right? Hopefully, people are watching and paying attention, right, and they understand that you may be a little out of harmony as we're working through this. And that's two sides of a coin, right? You see the value of it, you see the goodness, and you're making an impact. But it's hard. And what I would say in all that, right, is, when you're out of harmony, one way or the other, please don't ever hesitate to raise your hand and say, hey, like, I need to take a knee. Yeah. One way or the other, either, the ask, the harmony needs for your family, you need to talk to somebody, or the harmony needs of the service is too much. Amen. That's the connection part, right? We got to be able to share with one another, and not be afraid to say, hey, I got to change something. But these exact kind of comments and feedback that we all need to have as we work through that. So thank you very much, Alicia. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for hearing me, and thank you for having this discussion with us.
Hey, Brandon, what about you? Is there anything that we didn't get a chance to answer for you, or a topic that we didn't bring up that you were hoping to kind of get out into the open or get feedback from Chief Lloyd and myself?
Hey, Chief. I didn't want to just provide a problem without also providing a solution. So on the topic that we were talking about earlier, a way that we've gone about trying to tackle all these, like PME and people having to do upgrade training, which ours typically takes from 7 to 9 weeks if people wanted to move into the crew chief position, is instead of doing the 3-week process, we were implementing a monthly process where each period was a month long, which gave a lot of time for our operators to be able to do PME, take leave, and also do upgrade training. And that really baked that into where it was easier for us to move people into different positions and also give them a lot more leeway into that. Even though their commit cycle ends up being 5 months, they still get that dedicated time to be able to do upgrade training and not have to worry about, that time, hey, I'm going to my commit cycle now, but I haven't finished my training that I need to do. So I just wanted to bring that up. I didn't want to, provide a problem without a solution.
No, I appreciate it. And is that a model you guys have implemented that you said and that was successful?
Roger, Chief. We've been doing it since last October.
Okay. Oh, that's why you said that things might change come the 1 July with syncing everybody up across SPOC.
Roger, Chief.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good feedback.
And I think you're right to those points. As we know, right, there's going to be some ripples kind of across the force as we work through this. I think the core of this is really got to remember that if we get into a fight with a high-end competitor, they're not just picking on one Delta or another. We're all in. And so how do we work through and ensure that we have that trained, connected force that understands how to, has those calm contracts, if you will, and is synchronized across force. Now, is it going to be perfect? Probably not. Are we going to work through it? Yes. So I would bring those things as we go forward. We know we're going to adjust, right? We're going to run through at least 2 of these phases, and then we're going to make adjustments as we learn. And this is a learning organization. We got to be willing to do that. And so what I would say is please bring those things forward, continue to bring those best practices forward, and we're going to have real conversations. And at the end of the day, we may implement, we may say, hey, we like it, but here are the other things that fall short, and this is why we got to continue on the path on, the way we're going. So please don't give up. Please continue to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely, Chief. And then the last thing I want to bring up, I've heard a lot of conversations about CDCs and people having issues, with the new 24, or not the new 24/7 schedule, but just the schedule. I was just curious if there had been any changes on your guys' side for that aspect of changing CDC hours to hopefully help families that might have issues with coming back onto crew.
Yeah, so if any of you have had a chance to kind of hear any of the testimony that myself and the other senior enlisted advisors from across the services, that's been a really hot issue where we're asking for, additional funding and authorities on childcare. So, one of the innovative ways that the Department of Defense has been kind of looking at this, knowing what we call like non-traditional childcare, weekends, after hours, is really trying to beef up the childcare childcare homes that are either on base or downtown, right, where they can get certified by the Department of the Air Force or by the DoD, right, and then as members you can get fee assistance, where rather than paying the CDC, you could pay a home with someone that you know or someone that you trust or someone that has a program, right, that's been certified and is willing to, watch your children overnight on a Saturday or watch them on a weekend or an odd time, odd night. But you're able to use fee assistance, so it's not costing you a bunch of extra money because you can't use the CDC because of your schedule. And I know that several of the bases, Peterson and Buckley in particular, have been trying to have campaigns to educate, a lot of the spouses specifically who maybe live on base and they have the capacity or desire to open up a home childcare business, or people downtown who have a house down, off base to do that. So we're trying to increase funding and awareness of non-traditional type of childcare availability, specifically because of our employed in place missions. We know makes it challenging for guardians to kind of find that. And if you haven't had a chance to watch my opening comments during testimony a couple of weeks ago, I specifically talked about that. So we are trying to get after it. And I know that, and I think Caleb, you can talk to this, but I know you and General Miller when you do your readiness measurements, assess readiness, one of that is childcare.
That's right. Yeah, and absolutely is. As we get the assessments back and we go into the phase, part of what that is, and we talk about family, it's not just a hashtag, right? These are, what is the impact? Where do we have throughout the force these challenges where I don't have the child care? And these are things that General Miller and I, we engage with the military affairs councils in the local areas to talk through this, to reiterate the same points that CMSSF talked about when he did his testimony on the employed in place missions and the impacts that has and the challenges that inherently brings in the normal kind of systems that we're used to and we see out in the communities, and how do we increase access to care for our teammates. And it is something that is absolutely a hot item. It is unfortunately it's not an easy thing to solve, but we are working it as hard as we can to try and work through providing as much opportunity and much support as we can to our guardians and our airmen and our teammates that are pulling mission.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon. So feedback. Thanks for that question. So what I would say is, if you or anyone listening, I think each installation has a child care coordinator, right on the installation, either attached to the CDC or in the FSS, that should be aware of the homes and options for non-traditional child care. And if you can't get in contact or the position is unfortunately vacant, I think if you go to Military One Source, there's a link there that will tell you about the programs and how to get in contact and learn about fee assistance and non-traditional childcare. But there are benefits and capabilities out there for us to be able to take advantage of, especially in our unique employed in place requirements that we have.
I'll just add, last point is to that, right, is beyond just making sure that everybody else knows, is we're going to bake this in And our teammates that are at the SBDs that have access to those resources and manage those resources will be part of this conversation. And they'll be there to see firsthand, here are the challenges we're working through to actually deliver mission day to day. So again, this is going to be an evolution and a journey that we work through to shape the environment.
Hey, Captain Pescatore. So again, thanks for joining us. And I wanted to see if there's, any other questions or comments that you wanted to kind of bring up before we kind of bring the podcast to a close.
Nothing to add from my end. I do want to take this opportunity to thank both of you and everyone on the line for the thoughtful debate and conversation. And I'm looking forward to working through some of these concerns and issues as a team. So thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Caleb?
Yeah. Hey, I'll just close with a big thanks. I know that this is hard, but losing truly is going to be a hard day for us. And I've spent most of my career watching our competitors develop capabilities that are purpose-built to take away everything that we hold dear. And so there is nothing more important to me and certainly I think our service leadership in getting this right and ensuring that we have the capabilities and the people. And this is the thing, it's not just the hardware and the fancy gadgets that we employ and we deliver. Our most important weapon system are our teammates that are sitting here listening to us, that sit next to you every day. And so we've got to make sure that we're making the time and investment in them and in each other to be prepared for a fight that may come. I know that we are listening, we are engaged, we are going to make changes, we're going to evolve as a service and as a force, but it takes that continued commitment and that continued willingness to embrace the change that this journey has put us on and provide feedback as necessary and know that, hey, we may not get to it tomorrow, we may not get to it next day, but we are going to work through all of these changes and all of the needs that we've got to be able to deliver to have the fighting force that our nation requires. And so thank you. Thanks, SimSIF. Thank you, teammates that joined us today. And thanks for all of you that took the time to listen through this.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And I'll kind of end how I started, right? And talk about kind of where we've been on the journey, especially the last couple of months, right? And as it redefined roles and responsibilities and how training was going to be conducted, the unit of action that we're going to present to the combatant commanders and what it means to be a fighting force and all that entails with that, and the advanced training and working through all that goes with that. There's a lot going on, and it can't be done from the Pentagon alone. It can't be done from SPOC headquarters alone, right? We need all the guardians across. When I say guardians, I mean officers, enlisted civilians across SSC, STARCOM, SPOC, our service components, all of us working together to make this happen. And again, right, it's all about the guardian experience, right? Is that the experience you feel valued, you feel like you're making a difference every single day, and that you have a voice in what happens in our service. So again, thanks everybody. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to having a next podcast and see what the next topic or our next discussion that we'll have. So again, thanks everyone, and I think we're out here.